On a cold December night, a widowed CEO named Damien Hale, still grieving the loss of his wife, opened a small pink envelope that somehow landed on the hood of his car. Inside was a shaky, childlike handwriting. "Dear sir, I don't want toys. I just want a home for my mom. She cries every night because we might lose ours. Please help us. Lila, age 7." He reread the letter 3 times, his chest tightening. A request not for money. Not for gifts. But for a home. The next morning, neighbors on a quiet street gasped when a black luxury car stopped at a run-down rental house. And the widowed CEO stepped out, holding the little girl's letter. He knocked on their door. And what happened next changed all of their lives. Damien Hale had never believed in signs. He believed in numbers, contracts, deadlines, anything measurable, anything that could not disappear the way people did. But that December night felt different from the moment he stepped out of his glass tower office. The city was unusually quiet, wrapped in a thin blanket of snow that softened the sounds of traffic below. Streetlights blinked like tired eyes. And Damien, the man everyone called unbreakable, felt more fragile than ever. He had just finished another 18-hour day, burying himself in meetings and reports he didn't care about. Half his staff thought he was a workaholic, the other half whispered that grief had turned him into stone. Neither group knew how often he closed his office door just to breathe through the ache in his chest. The ache left behind after losing Anna, his wife, his only family, 2 years earlier. He walked to the parking lot with his coat wrapped tightly around him. Cold wind stung his face, but he welcomed it. Pain meant he could still feel something. As he reached his black luxury car, something unusual caught his eye, a tiny pink envelope wedged under the windshield wiper. At first he assumed it was a marketing flyer, but the childish star stickers made him pause. He looked around. The parking lot was empty. Curiosity tugged at him, and he slid the envelope free. Inside was a letter written in uneven handwriting, the lines crooked, some words misspelled. Childlike. Honest. Heartbreaking. "Dear sir, I'm sorry for putting this on your car. I don't want toys for Christmas. I want a home for my mom. She works very hard but we might lose ours. She cries at night. Please don't tell her I wrote this. Lila, age 7." Damien read it once. Twice. A third time, unable to stop. The paper trembled between his fingers, but not from the cold. A child wasn't asking for gifts. She wasn't even asking for herself. She was asking for her mother. He leaned against his car, stunned. "Why me?" He whispered into the empty lot, but deep inside, he already knew the answer, because life had a strange way of reaching people exactly when they needed it most. And somehow, this pink envelope had found its way to a man who hadn't had a reason to care in far too long. That night, he lay awake in his penthouse, surrounded by expensive furniture, luxury, and silence. He placed the letter on his bedside table and stared at it until dawn. Something about Lila's words clawed at the walls around his heart. Maybe it was because she reminded him of Anna, who used to say, "You can't save everyone, Damien, but you can save someone." As the first light touched the skyline, he sat up, decision made. He was going to find the girl. With the address scribbled faintly on the back of the envelope, he drove to a modest neighborhood he had never visited before. Children played on cracked sidewalks. Laundry hung from tiny balconies. The houses looked tired but full of life. Then he saw it, the small, fading blue house with peeling paint and a broken fence. Damien hesitated for only a moment. Then, heart pounding for reasons he couldn't explain, he walked up the creaky steps and knocked on their door. When it opened, the tired woman standing before him had no idea how much that knock would change their lives. Maya's hand hovered over her mouth as she stared at the pink envelope in Damien's hand. Her dark eyes, rimmed with exhaustion, widened with fear and shame. "Oh no. She didn't, Lila, sweetheart," she called, her voice trembling. But the little girl had already peeked from behind the sofa, her small fingers gripping the fabric tightly, her face half hidden and pale. Damien knelt slowly, giving her space, a soft smile warming his usually cold features. "You must be Lila," he said gently. "I'm not angry. I just wanted to talk." Lila stepped forward hesitantly, clutching a small stuffed rabbit with a missing button eye. "I didn't want to cause trouble," she whispered. "I just wanted Mom to stop crying." The raw innocence in her voice cracked something inside Damien. He hadn't heard a child speak with such fragile honesty since before he lost Anna. He took a deep breath. "You didn't cause trouble. You were brave." Maya knelt beside her daughter, rubbing her back. "Sweetheart, you can't ask strangers for help." "But he wasn't a stranger," Lila murmured. "He looked sad. I thought maybe he would understand." Damien's heart clenched. The truth in her words hit him harder than he expected. Maya sighed, tears threatening. "Please, sir. I'm sorry if she bothered you. We'll manage." Damien stood. "Actually, I came because I want to help." Maya blinked, startled. She invited him inside awkwardly. Their home was small, a living room that doubled as a dining space, a tiny kitchen with a flickering bulb, and the faint smell of vanilla candles trying to mask dampness. It wasn't much, but it was warm. Lived in. Loved. They sat around a small table where Damien listened quietly as Maya explained their situation. Her ex-husband had abandoned them 2 years ago, disappearing without support. Maya worked as a cashier at a local grocery store in the morning and cleaned offices at night. Still, the landlord had raised rent beyond what she could afford. They had 10 days before eviction. As she talked, she kept apologizing. "I'm sorry you came all this way. We're strangers. You don't owe us anything." But Damien wasn't listening to the excuses, only to the courage hidden inside her desperation. He noticed the way she squeezed her hands together, trying to be strong so Lila wouldn't worry. He saw the cracks in the walls, the worn-out sofa cushions, and the little heater struggling to warm the room. He saw the drawings Lila had taped to the wall, flowers, stars, a family of 3 drawn with a crayon heart above their heads. Something about that picture made his throat tighten. Before leaving, he knelt beside Lila and whispered, "I'll be back tomorrow. Is that okay?" Lila's face lit up. Maya's didn't, but she didn't say no. The next day, Damien showed up with bags of groceries. Maya tried to protest, but he simply smiled. "Consider it an early Christmas gift." The day after that, he returned with a new heater. Then with medicine for Lila's cough. Then with a small toolkit to fix the broken window that howled cold air every night. People in the neighborhood began whispering. Who was this man in expensive coats and polished shoes coming every morning like he belonged there? But Damien didn't care. For the first time in years, he wanted to be somewhere. He wanted to sit on their couch, listen to Lila's endless questions, watch Maya smile faintly when she thought he wasn't looking. One evening, as he tightened the screws on their kitchen window, Maya stood beside him, arms folded. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "Really?" Damien paused, the screwdriver still in his hand. The truth was a weight he had carried for too long. "I lost someone I loved," he said. "And I couldn't save her. But when I read Lila's letter, I felt like life was giving me another chance. To help someone. To not walk away again." Maya's eyes softened. Silence settled between them, heavy, emotional, unspoken. But just as hope began to seep into their lives, a loud knock shattered the calm. The landlord stormed in with a smirk, waving a paper. 2 days. If you don't pay double rent, you're out. I don't care who your rich friend is." Lila burst into tears. Maya sagged against the wall. Damien stood tall, a storm rising behind his eyes. "Double?" he repeated coldly. "You'll regret that." The landlord laughed. "What are you gonna do, buy the whole building?" Damien's voice changed, no longer gentle but the voice of the CEO who built an empire. "Actually, yes." No one understood what he meant. But they were about to find out. The landlord's laughter still echoed in the hallway as he left, slamming the door behind him. Maya dropped into a chair, her face pale, her hands shaking. Lila clung to her mother's sweater, crying into the fabric. The air felt heavy, thick with fear, with hopelessness, with the cruel truth of being powerless. Except Damien wasn't powerless. He stood completely still, jaw tightening, eyes focused on the door as if he could burn a hole through it. For a moment, Maya thought he might explode with anger. But instead, he drew a long breath and turned to her with surprising calm. "Maya," he said gently, "don't panic. I promise you, this ends today." She looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "He wants double rent. I can't even pay the old one." "You're not paying anything," Damien said firmly. "Give me a few hours." Before she could protest, he stepped outside, coat flying behind him like a cape. Lila rushed to the window and watched him get into his car, her small hands pressed against the glass. "Do you think he'll come back?" she whispered. Maya hugged her. "I don't know, baby. I don't know." But deep inside, she hoped. She desperately hoped. 3 hours later, a black car pulled up again. Maya was in the kitchen washing dishes when Lila ran in screaming, "He's back! Mom, he's back!" Maya hurried to the door, opening it with a mix of relief and nervousness. Damien stood there, holding a thick envelope of papers. His expression was calm. Too calm. "What is that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Your future," Damien answered. He stepped inside and gently placed the document on the table. Maya scanned the first page, and her knees buckled. "Is this the deed?" she whispered. He nodded. "To the house," she breathed, disbelief flooding her face. "Yes." His voice softened. "It's yours now. Forever. No rent. No fear of eviction. No landlord to bully you." Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she slowly sat, staring at the papers as if they might disappear. You bought the house." "I bought the entire building," he corrected quietly. "The landlord can't threaten you anymore." Lila jumped up and wrapped her arms around him, hugging him so tightly he lost his breath. "You saved us," she cried. Damien rested a hand on her back. "Actually, Lila, you saved me." Maya looked up, confused, and that's when she saw it. Real emotion. Not pity. Not charity. Something deeper. Something warm and painfully human. "Damien," she whispered, "why? Why would you do all this for us?" He took a slow breath, leaning against the wall, his eyes softening at last. "When I lost Anna, I shut myself away. I thought helping people would only remind me of how I couldn't save her. But then came your letter. A child asking not for herself, but for her mother's safety. Your courage. Your love. It reminded me what it feels like to care again." Maya's tears flowed harder. She covered her face, overwhelmed. "I don't deserve this," she cried. He gently lifted her hands away. "You deserve a chance. Everyone does." For the first time in years, she didn't argue. A week later, on Christmas Eve, Damien invited them to his penthouse. Gone was the cold, empty place it had been. Now warm lights shimmered across the room. A Christmas tree stood tall in the corner, covered in ornaments Lila had chosen. The scent of cookies filled the air. Damien watched Maya help Lila place a star on top of the tree. Her laugh, soft, free, floated toward him. He hadn't heard a sound that beautiful in years. Lila ran to him, tugging his sleeve. "Come see what I made." She brought him a small pink envelope. A new one. Decorated with hearts and glitter. Inside, in uneven letters, she had written, "Thank you for giving us a home. And thank you for giving my mom her smile back." Damien swallowed hard. Emotion hit him like a wave. Maya approached quietly. "Lila's right, you know," she said. "You brought light back into this house. And into my life." He looked at her, truly looked. The soft glow of the Christmas lights reflected in her eyes. "You brought light into mine, too," he said quietly. They stood there, inches apart, a silence full of meaning between them. Then Maya reached for his hand. "Damien, what are we to now?" she whispered. He held her hand gently, as if afraid she might disappear. "Family," he said. "If you'll have me." Her smile trembled, but it was the most beautiful one he had ever seen. "We already do," she whispered. Inside the living room, Lila placed the new pink letter on a branch of the tree, right next to the glowing star. Their home was complete. Not because of bricks. Not because of money. But because three broken hearts had finally found each other. And together, they became whole.